Let's speak on this now to Tendai Mbanje, Project Officer in the Expression, Information and Digital Rights Unit in the Center for Human Rights and at the University of Pretoria, and he's the elections analyst as well. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. This was a surprise result for a lot of people. Botswana's BDP enjoying nearly 6 decades of power, but this massive shock, as some have said it was. Did you see it coming?
Thank you, Bongiwe, and good afternoon to your listeners. Honestly speaking, we did not see this coming. We're taken by surprise, actually. When we did a pre-election assessment mission to Botswana after the invitation by the government of Botswana in July, I was with the African Center for Governance Election Observation Mission. Our findings found out that opposition parties were weak to some extent. There's no state funding for political parties in Botswana. We found that civil society was not vibrant. Civil society complained that it had also relies with the state for funding. Since Botswana was declared a middle-income country, civil society kind of funding shrank, and then civil society is no longer vibrant in Botswana. So the atmosphere gave, by all measures, indication that the ruling party BDP was coming back to power. Perhaps it was coming back to win with a narrow margin, but this is something that we were totally shocked, and not only us as external assessors, but even the citizens themselves did not expect such a huge whip.
What would you say sealed this victory for the Umbrella for Democratic Change?
From what I've gathered, it's first the internal factions within BDP weakened the party severely, and also BDP did not take an active role to debunk the speculations about, for example, ZANU-PF, Zimbabwe's involvement in Botswana elections. They did not debunk those things actively. They should have done that, because those things were not true from what we assessed on the ground, and from what our observers were deployed across the country did not see any hand of such. So those things, BDP should have debunked those things to some extent. And then also the economic challenges, which many of us were not so much aware, except a few of those of us who have been doing some work closely in Botswana. Youth unemployment is a big challenge. There's been an issue with diamonds, that citizens are not benefiting fully with the deals around diamonds. And also the failure of the BDP government to turn around the economy and to diversify it so that it does not rely on diamonds only and tourism, but there's so much potential. For example, if you look at the vast land that they have, they could tap into other areas to diversify the economy. So that has compromised the living standards for an average Botswana person. So hence they lost.
And when you then look at, that issue that you are talking about, the issue of the economy, the issue of diamonds as well, the president-elect saying we are an economy that depends on diamonds, so we're going to try and safeguard the goose that lays for us the golden egg in the short to medium term at the very least. His predecessor also at the same time appearing to be seized with this particular matter. How does it play out going forward in order to ensure that they put it to bed once and for all, in order to address some of the concerns raised by the Botswana people?
I think there's a need for wider consultation, and also from what we found out is that opposition parties raised concern that some of the people who were appointed to work in certain key ministries did not have expertise in the ministries. I think what needs to happen is that the new president needs to appoint people who have real expertise in terms of mining, in the mining industry, so that they can put all their expertise to ensure that the negotiations and the deals that they will put further or that will advance will be in view to advance the common good, which is to benefit the citizens. I think that's the first point. And the second point, also to do a wider consultation with various key players in the mining industry to ensure that the diamonds, they diversify also their sales on the global market.
And when you look at, the UDC, for example, some are saying that, this shock result is an indication that anything is possible in the future and they cannot afford to rest and think that they now have their grip on power. What's your reading of that? Do you think that they can afford to relax and maybe say that they can get a second term? Or is the other opposition also trying to close the net when it comes to ensuring that they also win the next election?
I think this has set a very good precedence for Botswana people to kick out a government that does not serve to their needs. So the UDC is actually in a very tight spot because they really need to work extremely hard to ensure that they've made a visible mark to the life of citizens. They need to turn around the economy, at least in some form of visible way, for instance, in terms of addressing the needs of the youth. For instance, let me tell you one thing. In our interaction with IEC some two and a half months ago, we realized that this year Botswana had registered voters. They had passed their mark in the previous electoral cycles. So the generation 2000s are the one that turned this election result into a massive win for the opposition. So these are the generation that are looking for opportunities. These are young people in universities who know that if they graduate, they're not going to get jobs. So these are also young people who have graduated and that they don't have jobs. So they have a huge task to ensure that they meet the needs of this small generation, because they are the ones in big numbers and the ones who voted in big numbers and took out the BDP. So they don't afford to relax in any way. If they relax, they're going to find themselves being whipped again.
And of course, young people may not be as patient, when it comes to really wanting change. So Tendai, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. That was Tendai Mbanje, Project Officer in the Expression, Information and Digital Rights Unit in the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria. And he's also an elections analyst.